Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, I think it's time for us to discuss a topic that I feel like I haven't really attended to in the past couple of months. And that topic is why wuwa content creators are constantly criticizing Hoyo games. The harsh reality of that. And we got Smack-san RB over here, a content creator who used to primarily cover Zenless Zone Zero, lost interest in that game, and, well, now apparently I guess he's a Wuthering Waves CC. The point of view that I have over here is that wuwa CCs criticizing Hoyo is great, because that gives them accountability. So that when, or if, the same things that they're criticizing Hoyoverse for, the things that make their game worse, are starting to happen in Wuthering Waves, they'll be on the front lines to identify when that's occurring, and of course, try to get it to stop. And this is something that I've personally done over the past couple of days, specifically due to my reaction to the 2.7 livestream, where I view Wuthering Waves as currently becoming HSR-ified, because there hasn't been a combat event in a combat-based action RPG in over 110 days. 2.5 to 2.7, no combat events. And you want to know why I'm heavily criticizing it so much? It's because that's the same shit that Hoyoverse does in its games to make it worse. That's already a first example case study of the dynamic that I'm talking about. Let's hear what Smack-san has to say about it.
I see these comments underneath my videos all the time. People asking, why do wuwa creators always have something negative to say about Hoyoverse games? You don't really see Hoyo CCs talking bad about Kuro in Wuthering Waves. It's always the other way around.
That's because there's not much to talk about, and this is also the situation. The only things you can critique in Wuthering Waves, the Hoyoverse games are literally 30 times worse. So it's like, even if you were to, as a Hoyo creator, to make a Wuthering Waves like hit piece or critique piece, people will just spin it around back at you and just be like, literally, it's not even close to as bad as it is in your games. So what leg do you have to stand on to even comment on this in the first place? Zajeff tried it, he got cooked. Flip tried it, he got cooked. Every single time a Hoyo CC tries to critique wuwa, they get fucking incinerated, and so they stop doing it. Let me just show you an example. Yeah, I farmed about 100k views on Flip after his videos, because, well, he was just lying for 90% of it. It is what it is.
At first glance, it almost seems like a one-sided drama. Like certain wuwa creators are just looking to throw shade at Hoyo, while Hoyo creators are just sitting back and not really engaging at all. But if you actually stop and think about it, there's a lot more going on underneath the surface. It's not just random hate, and it's definitely not as shallow as just we love farming. There are layers of history and player experience as to why this dynamic even exists. So today, we're gonna break it all down and unpack the harsh reality of why wuwa CCs, myself included, criticize Hoyoverse.
All right, he's officially a wuwa CC, ladies and gentlemen. Only this is the fastest Kurobot virus transformation I've ever seen.
And trust me, it's not just because we like to farm clicks or stir the pot, which, to be fair, I mean, that's an additive, but there's a real reason why this conversation keeps coming up. And by the end of this, you'll probably start to see the full picture too. But before we get into this video, if you've been enjoying the content, make sure to subscribe and turn the notification bell on so you don't miss out on any future videos.
Yep, make sure you do that.
Community Discord server is pinned in the comment section down below for those of you that want to join. And just a small note here, I obviously don't speak for every Wuthering Waves CC here, but I'm just taking a good educated guess from mine and my smaller CC's friends' experiences. But without further ado, let's get into this.
I'll let you guys know if the if CCs that are bigger than Smack-san also agree with his take.
First thing that we have to address, the overwhelmingly majority of wuwa creators, I'd easily say 90% of us, came directly from Hoyoverse games. Whether it was Genshin Impact, Honkai Impact 3rd, Honkai Star Rail, or even ZZZ, most of us weren't just casual players. We spent years or months with these titles, grinding day after day, pulling for characters, chasing metas, spending money, and most importantly, building content around them. And it wasn't just playing a game for some of us. Hoyoverse titles were the starting point of everything. They were
Yeah, I think that fits the bill for about 90%. If not more. And it's not like this idea, right? That it's like some disgruntled ex or you just have like a grudge. It's literally like, well, what else was your entryway into gacha? This is like somebody being a fan of like dramatic TV shows, right? One of the shows that really kicked it off for a lot of people being into like fantasy dramas was Game of Thrones. However, there are a lot of people that watch other stuff, right? Who started with Game of Thrones, they stopped watching Game of Thrones because it turned into shit in the last few seasons. And, well, now they're watching a bunch of other stuff. And people will constantly reference how awful Game of Thrones had been in its last few seasons, all the lost potential, all of that. It's not like you go ahead and just say, oh, they're just disgruntled with Game of Thrones. No, people just unilaterally see that the game is shit. But this is the thing. Game of Thrones had an ending season. Genshin Impact doesn't. These Hoyoverse games have literally gone to shit, but they haven't EOS'd. And so that's the difference between like a Game of Thrones or a Genshin Impact.
We're the foundation of our channels, the communities we build, and in some cases our main source of entertainment. If you scroll back far enough on some Wuthering Waves CC's channels, you'll probably find some Genshin guides or Star Rail showcases. That's how much those games shaped who we are as creators.
I actually uploaded my first video on like May something 2024, so I actually don't have any Genshin vids. No guides under that shit.
That's also why the criticism you hear from us carries weight. It's not coming from outsiders who never touched the game or people who just hopped on Wuthering Waves looking for something to tear down. It's coming from people who were once deeply invested in these games, people who cared so.
I have a C6. I have C6 units in Genshin. I think my highest is E2 in Honkai Star Rail. I have a Honkai Impact account that I finished like all the Honkai Impact first chapter story. I also have, I guess I have a Zenless Zone Zero account. So yeah, but I have accounts in all of those games, and at least I would dare say 100+ hours in all of them. Obviously more for some of the larger titles.
So much we dedicated hours into sharing that passion with others. And that level of investment matters, because when you've poured so much time, energy, and sometimes money into something, you don't walk away with just strong opinions. If anything, the more time they've spent with the games, the sharper the criticism becomes when things don't live up to what they could be.
It's a very normal take. For example, if you were to go to a gas station, right, and you bought a cheeseburger for that gas station, right, off the heater, you ate it, and then you got violent diarrhea for the next 3 days. You probably are going to tell people that getting cheeseburgers from this gas station is terrible. Much like how if you spent money on Genshin Impact and then you proceeded to build out a team that did 60k DPS and then Mavuik and Sitlali release right after you spent all this money and then do 90k, 100k DPS and have made your past investments useless, then you're probably going to tell people this game is balanced by a fucking idiot. There are dumb shits balancing this stupid game. Why the fuck would I play it anymore when all my past expenditures are literally worthless? That's kind of what it is.
And that's simply not hate. That's the voice of those who know the games inside and out and care enough to hold them accountable when others aren't. But here's the harsh truth. A lot of us fell out of love with Hoyoverse's games. And it wasn't because we just randomly woke up and stopped enjoying the game, but because these games decided to derive from what made us enjoy them in the first place. Predatory monetization tactics is one of them. Let's not sugarcoat it. Hoyo has built a reputation for pushing gacha to its absolute limits.
They push power creep to its absolute limits. I've never seen a game, or I've never seen a company push insane amounts of power creep on all of their existing titles at the same time. Guys, just so you know, they released Amphorius in its power creep, Miyabi in ZZZ, and Mavuika Sitlali all within a 1 month span of time. Miyabi, the character that at M0 did more than an M6 unit 6 months into ZZZ's launch. Mavuika Sitlali, again, 50% more damage than every other team in the game, right after Miyabi. And then the Herta, Amphorius, again, 50% more damage than every other team in the game. All within the same 30-day time span. They power crept every single game they had. That's talent. That's bravery. It's also retardation. There should be a case study done on how they've bricked all of their games.
From insane HP inflation that makes you roll on new characters because they make your old ones obsolete, to banner mechanics being absolute trash, or making new units rely heavily on other premium units.
And that's all a recipe for power creep, right? Mavuika doesn't reach the 90k DPS until you have Sitlali on her team, because the two of them combined are broken, right? You need all these different pairings, you need all this stuff put together, except I guess Miyabi, she's just broken by herself, but it is what it is.
Or they have half their worth. Let's just say they've mastered the art of squeezing every last dollar out of their player base. And eventually, once you start to become more aware of this, it makes you less inclined to even support these games. On top of that, they have dev teams that don't really listen anymore. Time and time again, feedback just seems to disappear into the void.
I mean, proof of that is just literally Genshin Impact still having weekly locked talent materials. after 5 years.
There's quality of life requests, balancing issues, or repeated calls for more endgame content. The pattern is the same. The community suggests, but the devs don't respond. Also, a lack of effort is creeping in, and now more than ever, there's this growing sense of stagnation. Rewards feel stingier, and updates don't hit as hard as they used to. For those of you who were there in the earlier years, it's painfully obvious when the passion starts to fade behind the development. So when people ask why wuwa creators criticize Hoyo, this is it. It's not hate, it's simply disliking the direction these games have went down. And this is where I need to be crystal clear. Criticism doesn't equal hate. You Hoyo shows really need to lock this into your mind. It's often the exact opposite. We criticize because we want these games to do better.
The unfortunate part is that it starts looking more and more like hate when the devs clearly show an intention to never respond, to never actually address the issues, and not actually fix the game. Because now basically, we're coming in asking for very reasonable things, very normal requests, and the lack of response from the devs is starting to make those reasonable requests look irrational to the broader community. And that's kind of like an unfortunate circumstance, is that nowadays just asking for like basic quality of life seems like hate, because these devs never fucking do anything.
Criticize because we've seen how great these games were when the dev teams actually locked in. Think about it. If we didn't care, we truly wouldn't waste our breath. It's way easier to just move on, cover something else, and never look back. But another reason we keep talking about it, besides just wanting the games to get better, is because we're invested in the health of the gacha industry. Now, you all really need to listen up to this point that I'm about to make. Whether you like it or not, Hoyo sets the tone for the entire space. If they cut corners, everyone else thinks they can get away with it. If they abuse monetization, other studios will follow suit.
I mean, think about it this way. Systems like the 50-50, systems like a non-guaranteed weapon banner, systems like a weapon banner even in the first place, right, are because Hoyoverse set the standard. They are the biggest gacha company. Genshin Impact is the biggest gacha game ever, with the highest concurrent player count, right? There's a lot of different reasons for why that occurred. A lot of it is due to COVID and naturally the conditions that came out of that. But this is the thing. That literally is what it is. And you just have to live with the reality that they set the standard. They might not deserve to set the standard. It might be illegitimate, but that's just a fact of the industry. And so, when this company, who again is the leader, who sets the standard, is doing all this crazy shit, like 50% power creep in one patch, well, that's a little bit rough.
Literally seen it riddled within the gacha space. Why do you think we see the same Hoyoverse formula replicated in so many other gacha games? So
the Apple of gacha companies. Yeah, and everyone knows Apple actually makes garbage fucking products.
When we criticize Hoyo, we're not just speaking for ourselves, we're speaking up for the wider player base that doesn't have a platform. Now, let's flip the script for a second. Why don't you see Hoyo creators returning the same energy toward wuwa or Kuro in general?
I'm excited to hear his reasoning over here.
Why is this so one-sided? The answer is really simple. They can't. A lot of Hoyo CCs are under contract. They've signed NDAs, sponsorships, or affiliate agreements that literally prevent them from speaking negatively about the games. One bad take, and suddenly they're off the list for early access programs, denied sponsorships, or even blacklisted. And even if they're not under contract, there's still the issue of audience retention.
There's a reason why the ZZZ that are criticizing HP inflation right now aren't partnered with Hoyoverse, just so you guys know. The biggest CCs leading that conversation of why HP inflation is bad, Kate the 7th, Average Luck Gamer, they're not sponsored by Hoyoverse. Why do you think there are no Genshin CCs that talk about the issues? Unless they're sponsored. Or sorry, unless they're not sponsored. We've actually reacted to a video recently. I think it was by Jello Impact. I don't think Jello Impact is actually specifically on a Hoyo contract. I might be wrong, but he basically said the game is dog shit for free-to-plays when talking about Genshin.
Most Hoyo CCs build their entire platform on the Hoyo ecosystem. If they start dropping critical videos, guess what happens? Their views tanks, their revenue dips, their community, which came from hype, guides, and positivity, that all starts to leave. Take it from someone who used to cover ZZZ. I promise you, when I made the switch to wuwa, a lot of my active following dipped out. So from their perspective, staying silent or overly positive isn't just safer, it's survival. And honestly, that's something that you've got to deal with.
It is what it is. These guys, these Hoyoverse players, they know that their games aren't in a good spot. And so what they really want is somebody to just tell them that, like, it is in a good spot. It's like a white lie. They just want to be told specific things. They don't want to be told the truth. And so these CCs are basically just lying, right? In a non-malicious way. But at the end of the day, it's not telling the truth about the status of the games.
Your livelihood is tied to one game and one company. Speaking out becomes a massive gamble. We've seen it with Brand Online. We saw a bit of it with Box 2. These are prime examples right in front of your face. But here's where it creates this weird double standard in the community. On one side, you've got wuwa CCs openly criticizing Hoyo because we've already broken away from that ecosystem. We have more freedom to call things out without risking our platforms.
Oh yeah, and I criticize wuwa all the fucking time too for fun. Yeah, it's because I've already set the standard for what I consider criticism. And you want to know what the funny thing is? There were so many CCs, there were so many individuals who were saying, oh, Saint over here, all he does is just make fun of Hoyoverse games or harshly critique them, but then he puts on the kitty gloves for wuwa. Okay. Yeah. Well, that's the thing, right? Maybe the issues in wuwa weren't enough to not have the kitty gloves on. But when it is something that's worth talking about, I'll just straight up say Kuro isn't listening and that they're fucking up. I'll call it mid. Yeah, I do that. And guess what? The like ratios on these videos are like 85+%. So even me going ahead, harshly critiquing the game, still isn't getting close to killing my channel. And that's the nice part about being in the Wuthering Waves community. Yes, you're allowed to critique things, and you won't lose your career over it. It's pretty great, to be honest. Kind of like a direct 180 from Hoyoverse, if we're being real.
And on the other side, you've got Hoyo CCs locked into silence, either by contract or fear of losing their audience. And when you put these two together, it looks like wuwa creators are just haters constantly punching up, while Hoyo creators are above it all. But the reality is way more complicated. One side is free to speak, the other simply isn't. Whereas things on the wuwa side are completely different. From what I've experienced so far, if you criticize wuwa or Kuro in general, as long as it's valid and not misinformation, everyone can get around it. There's a lot more.
And there's a lot of creators, right, who have been spreading the narrative that you can't critique Wuthering Waves because their critiques have been literally fucking dog shit. Like, actually not real. Straight up misinformation.
More understanding than the Hoyo audience, because just like a lot of us CCs, the audience doesn't want to see their game go down the same path as Hoyo. This isn't just about YouTubers throwing shade back and forth. It actually matters for the future of the gacha industry. If creators don't feel safe speaking out, then companies like Hoyo get away with whatever they want. There's no accountability, there's no incentive to improve, and the players are the ones to suffer. That's why it's important for wuwa CCs and other non-Hoyo creators to be loud, because someone has to be. Someone has to push back against predatory systems, against lazy development, against ignoring the player base. If we don't, who will? At the end of the day, healthy criticism benefits everyone.
And again, the healthy criticism benefits everyone, but like I said at the start of the video, it also holds those making the criticisms accountable for repeating their criticisms if necessary, if their own games that they main start going down the same path. And so that's why you see me critiquing Wuthering Waves. That's why you see me saying things like the game's being HSRified. Because it is. From an events perspective. Not like a Power Creeper kit design one, but 100% from an events perspective. Especially when I look at Wuthering Waves 2.7 on the wiki. And you want to know what I see on the wiki? I'll show you what's on the wiki. 3 login events, 2 casual events where one of them is parkour, and the other is a photo event, and then Vampire Survivors. That is the 2.7 lineup of events for 42 days. 3 login events, 2 casual minigames, and then a 3rd mini. That is HSR. Do you like this? You shouldn't. Because HSR is a dog shit game. And Wuthering Waves is doing the same fucking thing that HSR is doing for the events. That's a fact. And it's been like this for 3 updates. This will be the 3rd one in a row.
If Hoyo listens, improves, and raises their game, guess what happens? The entire industry levels up. Other games within the industry,
and I swear to God, this shit is happening because Hoyoverse games are all doing this in all 3. I bet you, if the Hoyo games weren't doing dumb shit like this in all of their games, wuwa probably wouldn't be doing it either.
They all get better because the bar gets set higher. But just to end this off on a personal note, one thing I've learned from my time covering Zenless Zone Zero is to treat every step as a learning lesson. Back then, I made the mistake of tying my entire brand to just one game. My content, my growth, it all lived and died by that single game and how it performed. And because of that, I used to hold back on criticism, afraid that saying something too negative might hurt the channel or upset the community.
Well, the community is full of fucking babies in ZZZ that start like screaming and punching and like throwing shit on the wall when you show them a graph of HP going up. So, I mean, it's like, I can see the level of caution being exercised over here when you're dealing with like a community that's this radioactive. And thankfully it started healing, but good fucking God, last couple of months or like 5 months ago, they were all stupid.
But I don't operate like that anymore. No more being boxed into a soul game, no more holding back criticism. Now I see criticism as a part of the job. It's not hate, it's honesty, and it's how we grow, both as creators and players. And if I see that within wuwa, once I make it further along into the end game, you best believe I'll call it out. I highly encourage other current CCs and even aspiring ones to take the same approach.
I view myself to a degree, and there's probably going to be ego spammed in the chat. I think of myself to a degree as somebody that's enabling those sort of conversations in the community. If the #1 Kuro bot, sorry, I'm number 5 now after getting demoted for my critiques, is going ahead and saying all of this stuff and heavily critiquing these patches and heavily critiquing the endgame and just heavily critiquing 1.0 units, all of that, don't you think that I'm setting the stage for even more people to be able to give their critiques as well? That they won't get bombarded? That I'm kind of like tanking the initial wave of hostility that the most toxic positive members of the community are going to express? Then I go tell those toxic positive people to go fuck themselves and that they're stupid idiots in a response video afterwards? I think that that's making the community better. I think that that's allowing individuals to say their true minds. While in the Genshin community, right, you got people like Doro apologizing because they said the patch was mid or some shit like that, and it was the worst patch in Genshin history, and all they did was call it mid. And then they have to send out, like, apology videos so they don't hurt the 12-year-old's feelings. I don't do that, right? And I hope nobody does that in the wuwa community, because you gotta call out these kids as stupid idiots when they're being stupid idiots.
Don't pigeonhole yourself. Don't silence your own perspective just to play it safe. Diversify your content, speak your truth, and build a brand that reflects you rather than just one title. In the long run, that's the healthiest way forward, and in my opinion, it's the best way to go. So the next time you see a wuwa content creator criticizing Hoyo, don't immediately write it off as hate. Look a little bit deeper. Actually use your brain for a second instead of instantly blindly protecting your favorite game or company. More often than not, it's coming from a place of genuine care. And that's the harsh reality of why wuwa CCs criticize Hoyo. But at the end of the day, let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Do you agree or disagree with this take?
He's probably referring to a lot of past instances, right? And let's be real here. There are not a huge number of wuwa CCs that criticize Hoyoverse. There's like maybe like I would say 5 or less of them. So it is a bit of a targeted video, but I gotta say, yeah, most of his points I agree with completely, or I experienced myself. Some of the stuff that naturally I think I've sort of like phased past, and I've brought in some of my own experiences too. It's a phenomenon, and I hope it doesn't stop, because these games are literally getting worse every single update, and it's kind of like a sight to behold. Again, the coinage I've used is a car crash in slow motion. That's what Hoyoverse feels like across all of 2025. And one thing you don't want is that sort of bullshit happening in the game that, well, you've turned to after Hoyoverse ruined theirs. That'll be that for this one, ladies and gentlemen. Great video by Smacksan RB. Make sure you give him a like and a sub. And, you know, we got more content like this planned in the future as well, because I think he drops some amazing vids. I'll see you all next time. Peace.